The Burrows of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burrows of Berea.
Nody no, nody no, notes, nody no, notes from the underground.
Okie doke, folks. Welcome back to Notes from the Underground, where we take a microscope to some of Christianity's thornier topics and people. I am your host, Tiziana Mom So Hard Severse.
How you momming so hard?
Shut the front door. I ain't trying to heat the outside. You don't even pay the bills in this house. Shut the door.
My sister, that shut the front door reference, my sister used to say, shut the effing front door, but she said the word. You know?
Yeah,
I was like, I think you missed the point.
You mad. Yeah, you're not supposed to, yeah.
It's a euphemism.
Because shut the front door. And you're supposed to avoid saying the F word, but she missed it.
Well, have you not seen Tim Hawkins?
It's a long time ago.
Christian cuss words?
Oh, no, but I have seen a reel. My sister sent me a reel of like when you're
YouTube
saved.
it.
Yeah.
He did it. He put it out on social media, Facebook, saying, hey, what are your Christian cuss words? And he does them all.
Oh.
And it is pee your pants.
Hysterical.
And as a mom,
Yeah.
I already have that problem.
Yeah.
Is pee your pants funny?
Nothing
I'm gonna
like
send you a reel my
incontinence.
sister sent me where it's like when you're saved, but you still have to, still have the devil in you or
Fart
whatever.
knockers.
Yeah, and it's like this woman who every time she wants to cuss, like she sings like a gospel song instead that has a similar like word to start. It's hysterical. Anywho, to my right, I have Rick, the Podfather Welch. I like that one.
I'm going to make
I
you
like
a
that one.
podcast you can't refuse.
Yeah. And sitting next to him is Sarita the Edge Edgerton.
Thanks for having me today.
I'm so glad you're here. And behind the glass, Rockaman Andy Bishop.
She's living on the edge.
Yes.
And his apple.
Living
That's
on
right.
the edge.
I
And
will
his cat.
I will mute my microphone before I start crunching into this apple.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Although you don't mute mine before I burp. I should start putting up a finger every time I'm going to belch. So you can just give you an advanced warning instead of making you do that in editing.
Yeah.
Although you might enjoy it. I don't know.
Most of the time.
Listen.
If it makes him
You
laugh,
do
he
you,
leaves
Butterfly.
it.
I don't want to tell you how to live your life. So in any case, folks, we are jumping back into Ruth. We have been studying Ruth for quite a while. We've gotten through chapters 1 and 2 and chapter 3. In the last episode, we went ahead and did a quick recap, but I'm going to avoid that today. And I'm just going to ask that if you are brand new to this conversation, that you stop now and go back and reread, because we have covered or re-listen to those first 3 episodes. We have covered so much historical, cultural, spiritual significance that it's going to be difficult to encapsulate all of that into a quick recap. Additionally, in the last episode, we spent over an hour just in Ruth chapter 3 because there is so much rich information and room for speculation, and more importantly, room for the revelation of the glory of God. So go visit that real quick, and we'll wait for you right here. Now, if you have already followed
Tiziana's
along,
giving me eyeballs because I'm intentionally chewing apple into the microphone because I'm like, I don't know, it might be an interesting sound sample later, but it's muted so they can't hear it. But Tiziana's looking at me like I'm mad.
I'm like, what kind of dark magic are you doing over there that you're like silently eating an apple? Literally the most impossible thing to do. You can silently eat a lot of stuff. An apple, it ain't one of them.
Nope.
Yeah.
It is not.
But in any case, so there you go. That's what I was expecting.
That was a good soundbite, actually, dude.
Literal soundbite. Oh, it was a soundbite. Oh
Yes.
man, so cheesy. All right, so before we jump into Ruth chapter 4, we are gonna recap quickly where we were at, because I don't know that we fully settled the end of Ruth chapter 3. Where we left off was the debate was raging about whether or not Ruth and Boaz sort of banged it out that first night, or whether or not.
Funny.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how the kids these days say it. But or whether or not he was just so impressed with the fact that within the environment of the threshing floor and an erotically charged environment, she was looking good, she was smelling good, she'd been mingling and circulating. We don't know whether or not his response to her being faithful and loyal and all the things he said and what you could have gone after a younger man or a rich man, but instead you chose me. We don't know whether or not his desire to get up quickly the next day and get this whole thing sorted was because he wanted to get the deed done.
And we gotta be careful not to put the high Christological viewpoint of Christ all the way back into his lineage. Because his lineage was messy.
Sure.
And so, just like you said with Judah and Tamar, it's easy to look back and say, well, no, Christ was righteous, and so therefore his lineage had to be. It was not. His lineage was a train wreck, and I think that's the point.
Well, and also, when it comes to whether or not Ruth slept with Boaz, where it says she approached him secretly or stealthily, we'd have to look up the Hebrew there to find out what exactly that word means.
Would you like me to do that right now?
I would love for you to do that right
now. So what would have happened if Boaz hadn't have gone down to the threshing floor that night?
Yeah.
He would have been ruthless.
Oh! That joke made its way back.
I'm so glad. Oh, man, Sarita, I was like looking at you eyes wide. I was expecting you to drop some knowledge, but no, it was just a good old-fashioned punny joke.
Sorry.
No, don't be
She
sorry.
probably
I was
would've-
trying to cover him looking up the Hebrew word.
Yeah.
She was going to take a Moabite out of somebody else.
Yeah. She would have taken a Moabite out of somebody
See,
else.
play on words are just awful, aren't they?
Are they? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
I'm
not
just
mad.
looking for this word, and I have to get my Strong's concordance
Well,
out
let's
here.
continue to set the stage a little
go
bit
right
because
ahead.
really it's like what we're trying to figure out because some of the, again, we look at what are the arguments because we don't know, right? The argument being maybe she did sleep with him that first night. The argument being that she didn't. If she did, one of the reasons why people have a hard time absorbing that is, again, because it would be like seen as unrighteous or it wouldn't have been holy and all this other stuff. However, when Tamar dresses as a prostitute, sleeps with Judah, her father-in-law, and then when she becomes pregnant and Judah wants to stone her, which would have been what would have happened, and she produces the cloak and the staff that she had taken from him as quote unquote payment and says, all right, if you're going to stone me, then you're required to stone the person who made me pregnant, which is also a law in Leviticus later on. He's like, oh no. And what does he say? He says, you are more righteous than I. So in that, and we can look that up too. But
found
in
it.
that, go ahead. What's the Hebrew word there?
The Hebrew word in the King James Version, it's used as she came to him softly. And the Hebrew word
Ooh
is
la
lot. And it is properly secret by the implication of incantation. I thought that was interesting, or enchantment.
Oh, okay. So there's a...
It's almost like she came to him under the cover of night and
Yeah.
in a secret way. Like she did not want to be seen
Yeah,
by
she-
someone.
yes.
When she came to him,
Yeah.
she was
She
not
didn't
going to
want
be
other
seen by
people
other
to see
people.
them.
Are
her
you a
doing
gold digger?
Which is the same way. Which is also the way that he sent her out.
Yes.
Remember
Before
that.
people
Right.
recognized one another.
Yeah, so she came in before anybody could see her. So
there were bodies laying on top of bodies. And
if she was out there on the floor kind of like living it up, doing her thing, and he saw her and all that stuff, then as the night went on later on, then she didn't want anybody else to see her, but she went to him in a secret way. Interesting.
Well, so essentially what we're experiencing when we read that particular moment then is like this extraordinarily like intimate experience between these two people. They didn't want anyone else's eyeballs, anyone else's interfering.
Have you ever sat down with a lover or a really, really great friend after a party? Party's raged and then it's afterwards.
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
have you ever had one of those talks?
Yeah.
Some of the
That's
best
the
talks of
intimate
my
time.
life happen. Yeah.
But
That's
there's
how I met my
also
husband.
Yeah, very good.
Then we had the wedding. It was all exciting. Then we went and sat on the dock afterwards and talked all night.
Yeah, that's a great way.
there's also something to be said again of the intimacy of pillow talk.
Yep. That's a good point.
Which is what's happening. I mean, whether or not they had sex.
To a lot of people. There's a lot of pillow talk going around that fishroom floor that night.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, or I don't know. See, that's the thing. I don't know if prostitutes spent the night on the threshing floor and then got up and went in the morning, or if they just collected their pay and went.
Well, it
I don't
said
know.
before people recognized one another. So was that, hey, you slept with that prostitute and you slept with that prostitute, and or was it just the men recognizing one another?
It might have been, and I don't know. So listen,
probably just means like daylight.
It might have also been that that's when they collected their pay based on where they landed. I mean, I don't know, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't like orgy style, right? The threshing floor is a wide open place.
Like that.
So, right. So it's possible that the choosing of the partner happened, but then like the actual deed didn't go down until the lights were out and everyone was asleep. So if you stayed there that night, when you woke up in the morning, maybe that's when you got your pay. We need an expert on ancient Near East prostitution.
Yes.
To come tell us, because when it comes to Judah and Tamar, that's why she kept the staff and the cloak, because he didn't have any money. Right. He didn't have any money yet. He was on his way to get his sheep sheared, and he would have had money.
It's possible with listeners that one among them would, know
the answer to that question.
Sort of historical data. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then, and I'm also reading Genesis 38. I'm just kind of like, now it was about 3 months later. So what I'm going to read real quickly is the story of Judah and Tamar. I enjoy that the heathen in the room is right here, because
heathen in the room.
I know that he doesn't know what we're talking about half the time, but it also means that,
I don't. It's true.
Yeah, but also that means that when I explain it to Andy, there might be someone else out there who also has no idea what I'm talking about.
That's right.
That's part of my job.
That's part of your role here on the show. So when we talk about the story of Judah and Tamar, I'm about to read how that story culminates. It's in Genesis, which again, that's well before the law. Genesis 38, verse 24. Now, it was about 3 months later that Judah, who we had already discussed, slept with his daughter-in-law, who was disguised as a prostitute, because he would refuse to fulfill the Levirate law and give her his son to give birth for his children, because her previous husband, his older son, had died 2 times. Anyway, so he sleeps with her, and it's about 3 months later, which is when she starts to show, because I didn't have pregnancy tests back then. Yeah. The only indicator was whether or not you stopped having a period and whether or not you started to show. So it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, your daughter-in-law Tamar has prostituted herself, and behold, she is also pregnant by prostitution. Then Judah said, bring her out and have her burned. It was while she was being brought out that she sent word to her father-in-law saying, I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. She also said, please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff are these. And Judah recognized them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah. And he did not have relations with her again. So
dude, I just found out something.
Go ahead.
You made the mistake of giving me the Strong's Concordance.
Oh, do it.
Are you going to get into the uncovering of the feet and what that means?
That's what I was talking about in the last episode.
I was super.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Well, I know that there are lots of speculations, some of them being it was uncovering his penis.
Listen, there was a joke that we did on the interlude, okay?
Uh-huh.
The interlude, we talked about how it said that whenever Zipporah circumcised her son, and she took the flesh and threw it at Moses' feet. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
And then I had said that the Bible actually said, or his genitals, and we went back and forth on that.
Yeah.
Like, Billy was like, which one stinks worse, And, but the uncovering of his feet in their culture is actually, it's something that they would say, like, if they were going to pee. They didn't have pants and stuff or toilets. Like, they were out uncovering their feet, like moving away things from their feet. But it's also exposing their genitals. That is literally what it says. So she is like, like he woke up like, whoa, what's up with this?
So it's
around where all his workers would have been.
It's kind of a euphemism.
It is. So again,
sorry if I stole your thunder.
No,
but I just happened to cross it.
I literally said that in the last episode.
Yeah.
I said it quietly and not like I didn't make a big deal out of it, because
it's just interesting to have. Yeah.
Because some people don't think that. Some people do, some people don't, and I didn't feel, because I have not done quite enough research for the people that don't think that is. I also, because for me, uncovering, when in Noah, when his son uncovers his nakedness and then calls his brothers in to see him, that also for many people is a euphemism. They think that there's some people that the suggestion is he R-worded his dad when he was passed out drunk as a show of power, authority, and domination.
Wow.
Which is
I've never heard that, so that's a new one.
When June comes around and it's Pride Month, I will focus my notes on the underground on homosexuality in the Bible. And we'll start from the beginning and we'll do a deep dive and a deep study on times and places. And we'll talk about it in terms of its cultural context. Because prior to the modern age, homosexuality in the Bible never. It was never about loving relation. It was always about power, control, and domination. Always. There was no conceptualization for it, even in Greek society. And again, people will argue with me that are Greek scholars, and that's totally fine. The homosexual sex happening within Greek culture was predatory, and it was not about love. And in cultures where sex with men was kind of seen as this sort of power and dominance thing, it created a lot of trauma, and it denigrated the status of women. So when you see in ancient Greece, when you see the men, like the David is all naked, but like the Venus is clothed or whatever, it's not because they wanted to be modest towards Greek women. It was because they didn't think a Greek woman's body was beautiful enough to be depicted naked. Because So don't get me started on the Greeks.
Yeah.
And again, Greek scholars out there, apologize to you, but don't get me started.
It's all Greek to me.
Don't get me started.
I've read and heard all this, so I'll be interested to see where you head with that.
Yeah, and we can talk about it. We'll talk about it. And we can do that in honor of Pride Month because, spoiler alert, I don't think the Bible says what we think it says about the consensual, loving, committed relationship of two consensual adults.
There's a lot of people that disagree. I've talked to a lot of different people, and it's going to be hairy all up in the studio, and I look forward to it. It's great radio. Let's have some fun with that one.
Yeah. Well, and we can call in other people too if you want, because like I said, I've done it. My study on this isn't just based in Bible. It's also based in. I took a class, but it's like also based in like a study of theologian. But it's also like a study of Greek culture and how Greek culture became one of the largest influential movements of the ancient times. I mean,
in the Western world.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's as the only parallel we can think of is how American culture has become this sort of standard all over the world that people are emulating it and following after it and everything. It was like that in ancient times. And so you can't untangle the two.
Yeah.
Like when you're reading about ancient times, you have to also understand that Greek culture played such a significant and prominent role in everybody's lives that you almost have to kind of also untangle Greek culture in order to understand what's going on. And I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. And I got to be honest with you, that's one of the things Derek Lambert does. He breaks it down, son. He gets way back into the Greek and those influences on Palestine in the early days. And it's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
Yeah. But back to our story. So it is possible, and there are some people that believe when Ruth uncovers his feet that it's a euphemism for she uncovered his bits and was like, yo, let's get down, right? Like
basically it was saying, I want to marry you.
But it was, so
it puts him in a compromising position.
It puts him in a compromising position. He either needs to deny her in that moment, or and that was Ruth's goal or Naomi's goal all along. Naomi's goal from the very beginning of this entire enterprise in chapter 3 was to secure Ruth's future, secure her husband, and proceed with the process of redeeming Naomi's land, which obviously would have gone to to Ruth's firstborn. So in essence, Naomi's redeeming the land for herself, but she's also redeeming it for Ruth.
That's right.
Because Ruth's the one whose son is going to work the land. Ruth's the one whose son is going to own the land. Ruth's the one whose son is going to benefit in Naomi's lineage.
Yeah.
But, so there's again, back to faithfulness. As Ruth has enacted this extraordinary act of faithfulness, chesed, to Naomi by going home with her, doing the hard work of gleaning so that Naomi doesn't have to experience the shame. Here, Naomi now is going out of her way to redeem something that belonged to her, but so that it will benefit Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we ended that story, Naomi had said to Ruth, let's go and see what the man does, because he will not rest until this matter is settled. Because unfortunately and I don't know I don't think Naomi knew there was a nearer. I don't know if Naomi knew that that's what was going on. Because she says, oh, well, let's wait and see what he does then, because the man won't let it rest until it's done. She knew that he was honorable enough.
I think she knew exactly what was going on. I think she knew there was a nearer, and I think she knew to go to Boaz's place. I think she's smart. I think Naomi is a beautiful mind.
Yeah. And again, the only reason why I think that maybe they did have sex and maybe Boaz didn't realize it was her until he woke up later, or I don't know. However it worked out, because it's dark on the threshing floor after that. That's why he's like, feeling about in the dark, like, what is going on? Who is this? Who are you? He doesn't know because he can't see. So I'm curious if two things. If Naomi did set Ruth up to potentially have sex and potentially become pregnant, knowing, like we just read in the law of in the story of Judah and Tamar, if she had become pregnant by prostitution, she would have been burned to death.
Right.
But if she did sleep with Boaz, it could have been, we need to settle this right now because I honor her, I care for her, I don't want to see her suffer. I'm the one that slept with her, or whatever.
Yeah, so you have two ways of looking at the urgency. It's either urgent because of the bad way, or urgent because he loves her and it's very pure and honorable.
Either way, he loves her and it's pure and honorable. I don't think it's bad that he would want to,
Well, if he just doesn't want the nearer to get pissed off because of what he did,
or he wants her to get married and have sex with the near as soon as possible, so that they can at least say it was if she gets pregnant. Because we don't know. The thing is, they don't know if she got pregnant or not. Mm-hmm. Like, he is not aware of what happened.
Isn't it kind of like the way David handled Uriah with Bathsheba? Remember?
Right.
He's like, all right, get them together. So just because he'd already had sex with Bathsheba. So he's like, let's get them together. And Uriah was so honorable. He's like, I'm not even having sex with my own wife when my guys are on the front lines.
Exactly. So it's possible that Boaz was trying to do that.
This way. That was their culture. They thought this way.
Yeah. Hurry up and get her married.
And let her. David, right?
It is. And just in terms of prostitution is like one of the oldest professions in the world, right? Mm-hmm. Sheepskin condoms have been around since as long as there's been
then they recently find out like an older one. It was a couple, I say recently, it's probably in the last 5 years or something. But
yeah. So it's also possible that Naomi and Ruth had carried contraception with her, a prophylactic.
I was wondering about that because, like, as dangerous as prostitution is under any circumstances, or as taxing maybe, can you imagine a world with no contraception?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they knew how to not get pregnant. They knew to spill their seed on the ground. They knew to wear condoms. They knew, they knew.
Catholics can imagine a world.
Yeah, they knew how to do all of that.
The Catholics can do that. They can imagine a world that doesn't have contraception.
Right.
That's all they're doing.
They're imagining it.
You're imagining it.
But even in modern times, condoms are only 99.9% effective against pregnancy when used correctly. So I'm sure that in ancient times there were plenty of pregnancies that happened, even though they were using these sheepskin prophylactics.
Sure.
And there's also home remedies for adiosing an unwanted pregnancy that women knew about.
Royalty, probably not that necessarily,
people had been
but
doing,
that's
just to kind of force a period, at some point. So, but I mean, I guess what I mean to say, and what I would like to take away from this conversation is, whether or not they slept together or whether or not they didn't sleep together, either way, God's still in the story and it's still righteous. Either way, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I don't have a strong attachment to one version or the other. My challenge is when people have a strong attachment to them not sleeping together because that's the righteous version. Whereas Tamar sleeping with Judah, his literal words are, she is more righteous than I.
Because, that's right.
Well, when I teach history and I teach for my homeschool co-op, one of the things I start out the year by saying, because we're doing U.S. history this year, we cannot put our morality on 400 years ago, on 1,000 years ago, on what we consider our moral standards of today may not have been even close to what the Moabites, the Israelites, these people
I would say
were
that's
doing back
absolutely
then.
True on a number of fronts, right?
Well, yes, and so we talk about it in the lens of talking about slavery and African American issues and things like that. We can't put our morality, modern day morality, on how many ever years ago, and I can't put my morality on Andy, and Andy can't put his morality. He can't judge me through his lens of morality, and I can't judge him through my lens of morality.
Right.
And we just have to be careful when we're speaking to one another and when we're speaking about history and we're speaking about Bible, that we're not putting 21st century American standards on people who did not have the same standards.
Yeah.
Culture. Things were different. Things looked different. Things smelled different. Things, everything, people were different. And so we just have to, a lot of us come from very puritanical backgrounds, with our sense of morality. And like Andy was saying about the ideas of sex, and even those are very puritanical, very, Mayflower compact kind of things. But even that wasn't the whole story for them. And that's not the whole story for us. I mean, we can say we have all these puritanical views, but look at our culture, look at our society. It is not.
Yeah, sure.
But we have to be very careful not to we can't help but look at this through the lens of the way we believe and the way we think. But we have to kind of look at it was, what was she doing? What was she thinking? What was he thinking? What was Naomi thinking?
What was culturally relevant for them?
What was relevant for them?
Yeah. And then bind all of that up and say, what is the proverbial point?
And
why did it make it into the Bible?
And then why does God speak to so many people through these 4 chapters?
Yeah. 4 chapters.
We did this with Esther. Why? Yeah. When he's not even mentioned. We talked about this. If you haven't listened to Esther, go back and listen to that series as well. Why is it so important that it was included in the canon? So what does God want me to glean from this for myself, for my family, for my culture?
Yeah.
Because you can thrive and be redeemed despite the culture.
Yeah.
That's what this is about.
Yeah.
We can thrive. We can know God. We can be at peace with God despite the culture.
Which is exactly what she was saying earlier. I don't know if you felt that tinge, the Christian tinge, when she started talking about homosexuality. How hard is it for us who were, been around this culture for so long, and how hard it is to believe we know certain scriptures and we've been told them. And when she says, well, I don't believe it's to be understood that way. There's an uncomfortable feeling when you start sort of branching outside of that puritanical look at it. Maybe, so if nothing can separate you from the love of God, can homosexuality? Yes, it can, because it's an abomination. I understand where you're going from, but it's not about the act. It's about the human being. That's what we're talking about here. So it gets interesting.
It's the same thing we were discussing about abortion earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, abortion cannot separate us from it's the same. Sin is sin.
Yes.
Sin is missing the mark. And whether that sin is telling a little white lie to your teacher about your homework or abortion. It is killing. I mean, it is. It is.
Or
thou shalt not murder.
If you get right down to it, in my opinion and in my studies, homosexuality is a stand-in word for sex that is wrapped up in power and control and desire that does not treat the other person as a living human being. How many times have I done that with a straight guy?
I don't know. I was going to guess. I'm going to say 2.
Just to be fair, not very many.
I was going to say.
To be clear.
I was going to say.
But what I'm saying is,
that might need elaboration.
It's just as. Let me be clear, ladies and gentlemen.
Listen, bro. 76th time,
and everyone else.
I'm still going to try.
But what I'm saying is that the conversation is when you're having sex outside of a loving, consensual, committed experience where 2 people are being respectful of the magical power that exists within that particular union that is graced by God. And I've done that. So I guess I'm just as guilty as a homosexual person, quote unquote, if that's the read we're going to take on it.
We're all guilty. We're all guilty for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
That's not what, justification by faith isn't because we act good and we're better at acting better than others. That's not what it's about. It's always been about the love of God and what Christ did for us.
No matter what you continue to deal with throughout the course of your life. I'm a terrible gossip. I'll just say that out loud.
Yeah. You gossip on yourself,
me some tea. Like if someone's got something to tell me about somebody else, I'm like what's Olivia Dukakis's character in Steel Magnolias?
Nice to say, come sit right next to me. Yeah.
I do. So it's like, no,
It's my
so that
favorite
means
movie
that's
of all
something. My husband
My
had
niece's
never
name is
seen
Shelby.
it, and we watched it together, and he absolutely loved it. My
Yeah.
husband is a delight. Really, he's quite adorable. But anyway, he
is.
loved that movie. But the point being, I'm going to struggle with that for the rest of my life, probably. That's not a demon I'm going to slay until the day I don't have a mouth, or a pair of ears to hear the tea, But the fact that that's an ongoing issue for me, even as it's ongoing, doesn't separate me from the love of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't separate me from being a person who is working out my issues in real time. So when I know a person who is working out their sexual issues in real time, maybe they have a problem with, pornography, maybe they have a problem with, casual sex, maybe they have a problem with a certain dynamic that's not fully consensual, or that is unacceptable. Maybe they have a dynamic that yeah, I'm not going to go there. But or maybe they have a thing with casual sex that whatever. I don't care. The fact of the matter is, even it's possible for that person to be saved and continuing to work out that trauma and continuing to be redeemed from that issue. So it's important as believers, we like to think of our righteousness being, because we say from glory to glory, like a ladder. And you don't get to defeat this until you don't get to climb to rung number 62 until you've beat rung number 42. And 42 is gossip. Or 42, rung 42 is
life's not a neat progression of events in that way. It's not.
And
it's
I've
mess.
met plenty of people that have a problem with their sexuality, but have absolutely zero problems with not gossiping. That doesn't mean that they're better than me or I'm better than them. It's all the same.
The purity culture that we grew up in the 90s here in America really did a number in our brains, because the reality is the Bible never teaches that you have to be perfect. It never did. Jesus said, "Be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect." When you read that, you think, oh my goodness, how is that attainable? That's because he was. You're never going to attain it on your own. And as soon as you think you've got it, get ready for the storm, pal, because there's a storm a-coming.
That's a
gonna knock
concordance
you down and
issue
show
too,
you.
because the true translation of that word is merciful.
Yeah. Well,
it's not even
better.
perfect. It's just be merciful as your heavenly Father is. Well, Google it. Let's get into the real Hebrew.
We haven't even got into Ruth 4 yet.
We're not even in Ruth 4.
We should probably steer this boat.
Oh my gosh, my poor mother-in-law's at home with my infant. Hopefully she's okay. She hasn't texted me.
I got a meme from Sarita on this. 45 minutes in. Now let's get to the study. That's what we just did. That's how it works in podcasts.
It's literally been 45 minutes. Okay, so why don't we? So we've decided that we don't know whether or not Ruth and Boaz slept together that first night, but we also don't care, right? That's what we've decided. So let's go ahead and read all of chapter 4, because we might as well. Or at least, let's see. Let's get up to...
Listen, if this has to be a part 5, so what?
It might have to be a part 5.
So what?
This
has been some good stuff.
This gets really interesting. So let's see. Let's at least read up to verse 11. Just, do you want me to read it? Rick, you haven't read yet.
Let's let Sarita read.
Let's let Sarita read.
Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz spoke was passing by. So he said, "Come over here, friend. Sit down here." And he came over and sat down. Then he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. And he said to the Redeemer, "Naomi, who has returned from the land of Moab, has to sell the plot of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. So I thought that I would inform you, saying, buy it before those who are sitting here and before the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if not, tell me so that I may know. For there is no one except you to redeem it, and I am after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also acquire Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of the deceased, in order to raise up the name of the deceased on his inheritance." Then the Redeemer said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, otherwise I would jeopardize my own inheritance. You redeem it for yourself. You may have my right of redemption, since I cannot redeem it." Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning the redemption and the exchange of land. To confirm any matter, a man removed his sandal and gave it to another, and this was the way of confirmation in Israel. So the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself." And he removed his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses today that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Furthermore, I have acquired Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, to be my wife in order to raise up the name of the deceased on his inheritance, so that the name of the deceased will not be eliminated from his brothers or the court of his birthplace. You are witnesses today." And all the people who were in the court and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built the house of Israel."
Let's stop there. Or go ahead. Sorry. Never mind. Go ahead. Might as well. There's only a few.
I felt it when you did, because when you see Leah and Rachel, you're like, oh, we got to hone in on this.
We got to chat. No, but you might as well finish it. I'm sorry.
"And may you achieve wealth in Ephrathah and become famous in Bethlehem."
Oh, they do.
Yeah. So
Boaz is a freaking genius.
He takes a page from Naomi's book.
Please read the next verse. Please read the
finish
next verse.
it. Yeah,
you
just
said
finish
11, so
I did.
stopped.
Okay,
Read
well,
the
go ahead
next
and read
verse,
12.
please,
You go ahead and read 12.
because it goes on with what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so the men are still speaking, affirming his.
Yeah.
Here at verse 12.
Verse 12. "Moreover, may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, through the descendants whom the Lord will give you by this young woman."
Mm-hmm.
It gives us an insight to how old she actually was.
That's it. So first of all, remember in episode 1 how I was saying there are different and varying beliefs about who wrote the book and why and when.
Yeah.
And was it a recorded genealogy, like an actual recorded story that was written in a post-exilic world where they were trying to retain their cultural history and identity, or was it written during the reign of King David in order to prop up his reign and make an excuse for him usurping Saul as the king? And one of the arguments is that their names are too coincidental. Like, Orpah literally means back of the neck. Malhon means sickness, and Chilion means spent, and all this other stuff. The Hebrew word is so-and-so for the kinsman redeemer. It's literally like some guy. That's literally like they didn't even bother to find his actual name or who he was. The Hebrew word there is literally translated as like old so-and-so. Some dude.
Great.
Yeah, which I think is really funny and kind of like lends to that whole kind of like maybe some parts of the story were like filled in with some creative license.
Can I just say that I love the way Boaz draws so-and-so in?
I do.
Can I say, as a sales rep,
yes,
I'm a real estate agent, I love the art of negotiation. Yeah. To me, it's what makes sales great. So he draws him in by saying, there is this piece of land. It is needed to be redeemed from Naomi. And the guy's like, yeah, okay. I got some new land. I'm going to be rich and da-da-da-da-da. So I'll take it. However.
Yeah.
There's a pause and there's a but.
Yeah.
Or a however or whatever he uses there. You must take Ruth, the Moabitess.
And that's why the lady is a tramp.
Can you imagine this? Can you imagine the so-and-so's face?
Oh, yeah.
When he hears this, and he's like,
wah, wah.
He's going to lose his inheritance. Why?
Yes, because it goes.
Why does he lose his inheritance? Do you know why?
Well, because he is redeeming Mahlon.
But when he takes the woman, then he loses his inheritance. Do you get why?
No,
have you noticed that?
I do not. I did notice that.
I'm so confused. But
I did notice
that, but I thought it was because
it's in his family's decision making, because it has nothing to do with the redemption, because Boaz is able to redeem her. No problem, right? This means that his father is not going to allow him to inherit his things if he takes on a Moabite.
I mean, that makes
sense.
sense.
That simple. They were racist.
There you go.
And Boaz was not.
Yep. And the other thing is too, so that
no matter how pretty she was,
like Jim Crow of Palestine.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So he would have nullified his own stuff. But
I'm gonna cut you off.
But which is interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
you
also
bring up that tramp up in here.
Because this also goes back to what we were talking about when we read Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 5 through 10.
Right.
When the description of the Levirate marriage is given, and if a brother says, no, I don't want to do that, the woman has the right to remove the brother's sandal, spit in his face, and call him a name in front of everybody. And in front of, what's interesting, I think it also at that time is 10 Israel. So Boaz was very judicious when he collected 10 elders, because that's also prescribed that if something's going to be done, it has to be done in front of X amount of witnesses. So he just kind of casually brings in the elders, like, he's like, oh, let's just talk about this piece of land, but it also means that his marriage to Ruth was recognized and acquiring her was approved of at the same time. Smart. It was like a double whammy.
He knew how, this dude operated within the word. Right. Within the word, right?
I was trying to fit one in.
He knew the word verbatim, and he operated within the word.
Yes, he did.
He was not stupid.
No.
Naomi was a beautiful mind.
Yeah.
And Boaz, this dude was serious. Like, he was the word.
He understood the
made
law.
flesh.
Yeah.
Well, I also love that,
Catch that?
The Lord.
That was pretty smart.
The Lord is also seen here as well. He goes to the gate, and the guy just happens to pass by. Come here, friend. Have a seat. And the guy's like, do I know you?
That's why we laughed.
Do I know you?
We knew his plot. We
Do
knew
I know
you?
Have I met you before? I mean, we don't know if they've ever had any. He calls him friend, but that could just be, hey, fella, how you doing? Come over here. I need to talk to you for a sec. I mean, we don't know if they know one another. I mean, it's a small place. It's not Bethlehem's not giant, but it's big. I mean,
he knew who he was.
Boaz knew who he was for sure.
You know,
a guy I know.
Well, that's the thing. We don't have much information on old so and so.
He speaks.
So and so.
Yeah.
So and so speaks, but he's very general in the way he speaks about it. Yeah, I'll take it if it's a piece of land. I've got this. Well, but now you have to marry this lady. Oh,
see, I think that this guy was greedy.
Yes, that's where I'm
was
going.
Definitely greedy.
He saw the opportunity to obtain land
and expand his wealth.
Now, it's possible that this guy already had wives and kids and children, and he didn't want to mess with his own inheritance because he didn't want to bring strife into his own household by bringing somebody else in, and then it would have jeopardized, because that piece of land that he thought was going to go to his sons and become part of his inheritance
goes to hers.
Would have actually gone to her sons and here's the thing. They would have gone to Naomi's sons. That's the thing. So he would have, within the construct, he would have maybe lost his inheritance for marrying a Moabite, but also this chunk of land would have caused strife within his own inheritance, because it was they would have tilled it and they would have managed it. They would have probably made money on it all these years.
Yep.
And then at the end of when
it's quite possible
Ruth's
it's not racist at all. It could be just that reason.
I think it was.
But it could be your reason too.
I think it's both. Yeah. Because then they would have the sons, because we don't know. Again, Boaz is older than Ruth. This is discussed. We don't know how old so-and-so is. And we don't know, but the fact that he was passing by the city gate and like coming in to chat, it seems like he probably was also a person of standing that had the right to be at the city gate, like having chit chats where all legal matters went down,
He also had something to lose. Not everybody would have had an inheritance to lose.
So it might have been more along the lines of, oh, okay, yes, give me this land because I'm greedy. But then he's like, but you also are going to have to redeem her. And then he thought, and he did.
And he does, again, bring out she's a Moabitess.
Yeah, and what I like about Boaz's strategy here, like you said, the art of the sale, he tells him what he wants to hear and lets him get all excited about the prospect of it. And then when he reads him the clause, the guy just rejects it. Whereas if he had led with the clause, the guy might have been mad, feeling like Boaz was robbing him of land.
Yeah.
So in this way, the guy openly and in front of everyone denounced his right to the land. Before, you know what I mean? Because he said, yeah, I'll take it. Oh, wait, no, I don't want it actually. Instead of saying, I don't want Ruth, he said, I don't want the land.
Yeah, he gave him a chance.
Because I don't want Ruth.
Right.
God, that was a good move.
That
was
a good move. You're right.
This story is so good.
Yeah, it is.
One of my favorite books. And it's because of like all of these kind of like beautiful, because what does the Bible tell us in the New Testament? That we are to be wise as serpents but innocent and harmless as doves. Boaz didn't cause so-and-so any harm.
Not at all.
Boaz
he was
didn't
giving
do anything
him the world.
wrong.
And he could have lost everything that he wanted.
Absolutely.
And the hot girl.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so now Boaz is free and clear to acquire.
I mean, she'd already
not
seen his
just-
feet.
She already knew what she was getting into.
I don't like feet. So
It's like-
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where
we could just stop right
Yeah,
there with the
I
feet.
I
Leave
wonder
it.
if that's where we get the old
There are
saying
some
of,
people, Sarita.
you know what they say about men with really big feet.
Oh yeah. I
wonder if that's where it comes
from.
Huh.
Wow. Like there is such a it could be.
It could be. I don't know. It feels like a stretch. I agree, I guess. But maybe it is not where it came from, but maybe it's one of those things that's existed for as long as people had
yeah.
words for
She
it.
pulls off the shoe and spits in his face.
Well,
if
no.
this was a size 11, yeah, right.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Well, and I also find it fascinating that so they do the whole process of removing the sandal, and this is how the law is sealed, that this, so-and-so takes off the sandal and gives it to Boaz, which is interesting because they, the rabbis say that's a completely different thing. But, just in the way that culture grows and moves and shifts and changes, I think it's fascinating that she would have been able to remove his sandal and hit him with it and spit in his face. But now here, this guy willingly removes his own sandal, and it's the deal is sealed. So in this
Do you remember when that happened to George Bush?
Yes, in an Islamic, in the Islamic
when they
culture,
picked
if
up
you
the
throw
shoe
a
and they
sandal,
threw it at him?
Yeah.
Oh, did you know
Yes.
that there's like a 5-foot sculpture of that shoe somewhere in the Middle East? I learned that the other. I can't remember where.
That guy must have had a huge. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
sandal, Bigfoot.
Sandal.
He's Bigfoot.
No, thank you.
I wonder if that's where it came from.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway.
Wow, man, we digress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chasing rabbits.
This, yeah. Why'd I chase that? Why'd I chase that rabbit? What did
now
my
we gotta
friend
back
Tamara
up.
used to say? My friend Tamara used to say something like that. It was like, why'd I chase that rabbit when she couldn't remember why she'd gone where she went.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, God, that was useless. Cut that from the
No, that was
end
an Alice
story.
in Wonderland reference.
Yeah,
That's fine.
no, for
Yeah.
me, because I just started babbling and didn't make a point. I just talked for like a full 4 minutes and made 0 point. Just delete that. Anyway, back to the story. So what Boaz does is this brilliant mirror of honestly what Naomi did, which is use a careful construction of order of events to enact the most benevolent good for everyone involved. Because old so-and-so now gets to walk away from that situation without feeling any bitterness or without feeling any whatever. And Ruth gets to walk away from her experience on the threshing floor, a wife, redeemed, not humiliated, right? Everybody gets to walk away from that situation feeling empowered and feeling good about their choices and still being respected in their own eyes and in the eyes of their fellow neighbors, because I mean, again, back to if you refuse to perform the Levirate, duty, that's you could be humiliated.
Yeah.
And so this man was able to navigate that situation without being sullied or humiliated. Although some rabbis suggest that's why his name is so-and-so, because it's supposed to be sort of like in Deuteronomy again, if the brother refuses it, then from that day forward, his house is the house whose sandal has been removed or whatever.
Yeah.
Some rabbis suggest that that's why it's so-and-so. I just think his name was irrelevant. Like he's just some guy.
An NPC.
He's some dude. Yeah. So, but anyhow.
NPC.
All right.
That's what my kids will call it,
Non-playing character.
NPC.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
non-player character. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's finish out then the story because I think, and I do find it fascinating that, the Lord will give you by this young woman, the children of the Lord will give you by this young woman, and may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah.
And you'd been talking about them.
And that's the joke.
It
Like,
is.
do they know? Do they even know what went down on the threshing floor just a mere one chapter prior? No. No, they don't. But
Right.
it's still, it's not even a full chapter, really, I don't think. It's like within the same context.
But they're basically aligning her with Tamar.
Yeah. They're drawing, which is, again, a woman who dressed up like a prostitute and had sex with her father-in-law and then was called righteous.
That's right.
So be kind and be judgment-free on the people in your life, because this woman dressed up as a prostitute, slept with her father-in-law, and was called righteous. All right, I'll just finish, because now we end the story with the genealogy of David. But there's some interesting points in here. So starting with chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When they came together, the Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without next of kin, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has borne him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him in her bosom and became his nurse. The women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed, and he became the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the descendants of Perez. Perez became the father of Hezron, Hezron of Ram, Ram of Amminadab, Amminadab of Nahshon, Nahshon of Salmon, Salmon of Boaz, Boaz of Obed, Obed of Jesse, and Jesse of David.
And now you can honestly see there's 2 things that I picked up on. Number 1, the Bible is clear that when she became his wife that they had relations. That tells me they didn't have relations before. I'm sorry. That's just where my brain is at. Not about purity culture.
Yeah, sure,
I'm
sure,
just
sure,
following
sure.
it, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is what I hadn't picked up on before is where it fits in this genealogy.
Yeah.
It's no wonder they'd mention Perez. It's because it's in his lineage.
Well, yeah. I know,
yeah. But I mean, I didn't pick up on
you
that.
didn't remember that.
I didn't pick up on that.
Well, and the only argument I have with
and that his dad was named after a fish.
Yeah, and they came together, and the Lord made her conceive, and she bore a son. See, to me, it just means that they didn't conceive until that moment. Because even when David went in to comfort his wife after the child had died, it says, and he went into her, and they had a thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that wasn't the first time. It's just that's the time that made Solomon.
Okay.
So it's also possible
it's not,
that it's just that in that that she wasn't actually pregnant if they did do it on the threshing floor. It wasn't until after the covenant was made that the child was born.
I'm just a word nerd. Like I like
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like I'm digging in. Like if he really wanted us to know, he would have told us about relations. That's how I'm thinking the writer's looking at it.
And he knew her. I mean, how many times we hear that? And he knew her.
Right.
Yeah.
Knew her.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
But at
It's
the
either
same
way.
time, what happened on that threshing floor was kind of between
Stays
the
on
two
the
of them.
threshing floor,
Like you said. We don't know what happened. And it's also possible, again, that the original readers of this story wouldn't have needed to be told explicitly. They would have just picked up what was being laid down. It's just that we're so far removed from when that would have happened.
What was being laid down, huh?
Listen, they would have picked it up. But here's the thing. Like, we don't know if there are lots of times where certain things are done and said especially in law, where for us, we're like, what? But they didn't need an explanation because it was current in their culture. So it's also possible. And again, like I said, I don't have a strong attachment one way or the other to whether or not they did or didn't. What I have a strong attachment to is this idea that either way, God was doing what God did. And there's no reason to say they didn't do it in order to preserve a puritanical approach to biblical history. If your goal is to preserve a puritanical approach to Christian history, then I might ask that we interrogate that. But if you're just saying, I don't know, maybe they didn't, whatever, I don't care. If she uncovered his penis, if uncovering his feet was a use of uncovering his penis, I have a really hard time believing that a grown man who is an adult, who probably wasn't a virgin, who had a woman come to him smelling good and looking good in the middle of the night and literally puts her hand on his bits. He's like, well, now hold on a second.
We got to wait for old
But there are
so-and-so.
some men who have self-control.
But there are some men who would. Absolutely.
Dude, I didn't even have to have a girl around.
That's true.
Neither did any of us.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, not here's the thing. Here's a thing. There are activities that go on in prostitution that are not intercourse.
Oh, yeah.
There could be things she could have uncovered, the bits and pieces, the twigs and berries, if you will, and other things happened.
Yeah.
But not that.
That's true.
That's not wrong.
No, that's
That's
absolutely
not
right.
wrong.
We can all be right.
I'm just saying, and it's really.
They could have fooled
me,
around, is what you're saying. They could have fooled around, but they could have just avoided sex.
That whatever happened is not important.
Yeah.
To the outcome of the story.
Right, it doesn't change the story. Sure.
Whether she was, whether she wasn't, whether he was, whether he did, whether he didn't, whatever that is, what this picture is a picture of is
a redeemer.
an unredeemable being redeemed by the Redeemer.
Dressed in a Moabite clothing.
Paying,
a
ransom, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
She even, my Bible, the Bible that I used that was Andy's, uses the word slave.
Mm-hmm.
Yours used servant.
Mm-hmm.
But the picture of God's ransom through Jesus' blood is a picture of paying for a slave's, you're buying that slave.
Right.
Yeah.
And it cost Jesus Christ his blood. But if you go back from Jesus Christ, his kinsman redeemer bought this woman and basically made an honest woman out of her.
Yeah.
I think we've said that before. Somebody has said that before. He made an honest woman out of you. Well, that's what he did. Yeah. And the ransom was paid. The redemption was made. She was, in the eyes of the Jewish people, irredeemable, but not in the eyes of God and not in the eyes of Boaz. So much to the point that she gets into the lineage of the Lord and Savior, Jesus
DNA.
Christ. Yes.
The DNA.
And the Bible says she is better to you, Naomi, than the perfection of 7 sons.
That's right. Woo, girl.
7 sons, her perfect number.
Yeah.
This one Moabitess daughter-in-law is better to you than if you had 7 perfect boys.
That's right.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. You tell me the Lord doesn't love women. You tell me right now that God does not look down on women and say, yes, I made a good thing. Lift him up.
Something that I love too is that all of the neighbor women, it said, that came around, said a son has been born unto
Naomi.
Never mentioned Ruth.
And she nursed him.
And she nursed him.
She became his nurse. How?
Yeah.
She must have not been very old either because she still hung the thing.
Well, she said, I wouldn't be able to make children for you. I'm curious about that nursing because
she says.
I don't think she was milking I don't think that
but
was.
But anytime the Bible uses the word nurse, like with Moses.
That was his mother though, and she just had the baby.
But that's the same.
But that's the English translation.
True.
We might want to let that's a perfect example of because I think that essentially
she took care of him. She was his nanny.
It became her son.
Men could be pacifiers technically,
and men have been in other cultures. That is not an uncommon.
That's why we have nipples.
Right. It is not uncommon in a lot of indigenous cultures if the mom's not around for the father to, if you don't have a Walmart nearby, which is 2/3 of the world, right? Then if you need to put something in a crying baby's mouth, it's not at all uncommon for fathers to do that.
Now it is in America, it's uncommon, but everywhere else in the world, they got to do what they got to do, man.
That's just because we're weird about gender politics.
We are weird about everything.
Yeah, we're weird about a lot of stuff. There's absolutely nothing wrong
we're the best.
with a father dry nursing its child if that brings comfort. Absolutely nothing. It's especially
Eagles with explosives.
Eagles.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good band name.
But I do like that she took this kid and basically is going to raise this kid.
Yeah, as her own.
As her own.
Yeah.
And just it's an amazing. It's just amazing to me. Yeah,
that's what's fascinating too, because like the idea of the Levirate marriage was so that the name wouldn't be blotted out. So the sister, or the brother took a woman and had a nephew. That's really close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is Naomi's daughter-in-law who has been redeeming from this random extra person way over here. It's the amount of hoops that had to be jumped through and the distance from actual relation that occurred for Naomi to be given this son who the women in the community name. Right? Ruth doesn't even name her own son, which in some circles, in some reads of the Bible, is also affirmation of the sort of racist ideology. And we don't even want her to name the kid because we don't even want the child. We don't want this child to have any Moabite identity. So we are going to remove him from that identity as much as possible by not even allowing this Moabite woman to name him. I don't go that far. I feel like that's like from the Women's Commentary Bible. So that's like a little bit. That's a little far for me, but I can appreciate that if you are of Moabite identity and you read that story, you might have some feels.
But if you fast forward to the New Testament, when Jesus says, whatever you do to the least of these, you do also unto me.
That's right.
Ruth was essentially a foreigner, outcast, poor,
husbandless,
childless, worthless.
Absolutely.
She was the definition of the least of these.
Yeah.
And God saw fit to see her.
Yeah.
This gets me.
Yeah.
Because I have been that woman. Yeah. I have been the woman who's been forgotten, who's been lied to, who's been hurt. Mm-hmm. And Jesus saw me and sent me a husband who is my kinsman redeemer. He's not really related to me, but I
hope not.
He brought me. He brought me. I'm adopted.
I'm just kidding.
I'm adopted. It's
I'm
possible. But he brought me. He brought me to the Lord, who is my redeemer.
Yeah.
He introduced me to this Jesus who redeemed me and said, "Listen, I'm going to pick you up out of this dirt and filth and grime, and I'm going to clean you up, and I'm going to wash you in my blood, and you are going to be as white as snow. And I see you because I had not been seen. I couldn't even see myself. I was so broken. This woman was broken to the point that she would maybe prostitute herself. Yeah. I have not been that broken, but I gave it away for free. But
geez, you were,
I'd only known.
That was great.
Yeah. But she was so broken.
Yeah.
And he saw her and cared for her enough to pick her up and put her in the lineage of the Savior of the world.
Include her.
Yes.
You know, I know. It just gets me. I'm over here. I'm all teary. It's a beautiful story. And I
just like Esther, it's a beautiful story.
I'm so sad I never got to be here for being a part of that.
Do not. Mm-hmm. And I tell my teenage girls that I teach at church, just because you're a 15-year-old girl or a 14-year-old girl doesn't mean you don't have some worth to the kingdom of God.
That's right.
Now get out there and do kingdom business.
Amen. That's right.
Don't let somebody tell you that just because you're a young girl that you don't have any value or any worth, because Jesus sees you as he saw Esther, he saw Ruth, and they changed the world.
He saw Mary.
Because they were faithful to do what he wanted them to do. And Mary, yes, because they were faithful. They were worthy, and they were women of excellence, despite what the culture had forced them into or made them into.
That's right.
So, I try to tell them, be women of excellence. Mm-hmm. Go forth and empower the kingdom of God. Just because you're 15 doesn't mean you can't do that.
Yeah.
Change your world. Don't wait for the world to change. You change it.
And you don't have to wait for the world to be perfect to walk in it in integrity. Mm-hmm. You can walk in all kinds of places with integrity, like Ruth did. Ruth walked with integrity in that space.
Yep.
She did, and look what it got her. And what's also, now, so this is just a completely random aside. Mm-hmm. I also find it fascinating because it's not that far to King David. It's not that far.
How it was, you just
named
it.
Great-grandparents.
Yeah. Obed,
great-grandparents.
Jesse, David.
Yeah, that's
granddad, dad.
And that was the father.
Speaking of twigs and berries.
So it was
the cat just almost got
his great-grandmother who was Ruth, and then it was great-great-grandmother who was Naomi.
That's right.
Very close. And he could have met them, actually.
Well,
if
and
they
that's
had
the
lived,
thing.
to be older.
But they could.
Yeah.
He could have met them.
For sure.
I want to find it because I prefer to say things. Let's see, I have to Google's it. It's in 1 Samuel that when David is running from Saul, that he goes and hangs out with and becomes a hired gun for the Moabites and for the king of the Moabites.
Was he with Ruth's distant family?
I don't know. That's what
Orpah's family?
Or like, okay, so I don't necessarily need to look it up. We can just like take it on my word that happens. Or do you want me to find it exactly?
No, he hangs out in Moab a lot.
Yeah.
David hangs out in Moab a lot. And I think it's because he's blood related.
Yes. Yes.
For sure.
I'm sorry. I'm still Googling it. That's the one thing I should have done before I came in here today. I was pretty good.
Well, you could always put the onus on the audience to look it up.
Go look it up.
Go look up where David goes to Moab. And that his great grandmother was from there.
Yeah, or someplace. So
she's
I can't
in the
find
annals
it.
of the history of the Israelite kings. I mean,
yeah. And so, so I think that like that kind of lends a little, like the way that the story ends and like the elevation of this Moabite woman, it also could be, again, back to that whole idea that it was written during the time of David to sort of justify his lineage and justify him taking over the throne because he usurped Saul theoretically, even though it was God that did it. God did it, and it's a wonderful story about God choosing who's worthy. But it's almost like because he spent so much time in Moab, I wonder if his roots weren't that far removed, if there were some cultural ties, and they had to find some way to make David's being 1/16 Moabite okay.
You would hear a similar argument about the book of Matthew, when it gives the birth narrative of Jesus, because in the book of Mark, it doesn't even mention the birth narrative of Jesus. it just talks about his rebirth, or the moment when the Spirit comes down on him in the form of a dove and he has the Holy Spirit and goes into the wilderness. Matthew goes back, and because they know that Isaiah has told him that a young woman is going to have a son, and you could say a virgin or whatever, but that had to be told. And so they go back, because the reality is when Nathanael heard about Jesus, and they were like, yeah, he's from Nazareth. He's like, does anything good come from Nazareth? I don't remember anything in the Bible about it. That's because he was supposed to have been born in Bethlehem, Ephratah, which is where this story takes place.
Uh-huh.
Right? And which is the house of bread, which is David, which is where David, the house and lineage of David comes from. So it's interesting, it's almost like the same thing happened to Jesus. Like they had to justify who this king was and how he was usurping Herod or whomever else it would have been at the time.
It's a long story of the same story.
Yeah, it's over and over and over.
It does repeat. Yeah.
It does.
Favor being chosen by God and related to the person's faithfulness to God rather than their genetic and, earthly right, quote unquote. So, it's just fascinating stuff.
I would like to pose a situation. So the threshing floor thing with the prostitutes, can you imagine? So Billy owns a sawmill. Sorry, Billy, I'm going to drag you into this. Can you imagine if there was a particular time of the year when all the logs came in, they all worked like crazy and then just stayed there all night and then got up and worked the next day. But everybody knew, literally everybody knew that prostitutes would just go there because they would know that the men would be there.
With money.
And you knew.
Yeah.
You knew, your neighbor knew, their neighbor knew, everybody knew.
Yep.
And they would sleep there and they would work their asses off and there would be prostitutes there every night. And it was just common knowledge.
Yeah.
That's a different world.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because your husband's laying in that threshing floor.
Oh,
some of them did.
I never even thought about that.
Some of them absolutely would have.
They would have known their husband stayed on the threshing floor, and whatever if he's right and everybody goes down and knows that that's going on.
Yeah, everybody would have known.
You may like to think that your husband wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Judah was married when he slept with Tamar.
But hey, some of them would.
Yeah.
Judah was married and had a wife when he slept with Tamar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So it's like, I don't think...
Well, no, his wife was dead.
Was she?
Yeah, he was a widower.
Remember. Oh, he was? Is that why he didn't want to get... I can't remember that part.
Yeah, his wife was already dead.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then. Skip it. Who knows? Who knows?
Dude, Solomon slept with 1,000 women that we know of that are recorded, which were the concubines and the wives. That's 1,000. That's the son of David.
That's crazy.
1,000 women.
Although
That's more than Wilt Chamberlain.
That name went through my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, Wilt Chamberlain.
He's a basketball player.
Oh,
from the
okay.
Infamous
for sleeping with anything that moves.
Yeah, six women at the same time at night. That's just after a ball game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
he's what do they call it? Lothario. Isn't that what they say that?
Well, I don't know that one yet.
Oh, we got to look that word up and teach our audience. Isn't it Lothario?
I have no idea.
Yeah, anyway.
That would be a Shakespearean.
I also don't know what you're talking about.
You think? Is that Shakespearean?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Lothario.
I think I have that random knowledge floating around in my brain.
Lothario meaning is a man who behaves selfishly and irresponsibly in his sexual relationships with women.
That's a good word.
I know the word. Let's see how
That's
Google
a good
responds.
word. I like that word.
Lothario.
It was more of a low.
Let's see.
Lothario.
I don't get it.
Lothario.
Look, our vocab lesson for the day.
Yeah, I hope you learned.
That's an interesting word.
That was pretty. I can't believe. You know where I got it from? I got it from a movie, of course. So it says right here, mid-18th century, from a character in Rose Fair Penitent, 1703. The name had earlier been used in Spanish in Don Quixote, 1605
That's
to
where I know it
1615 by
from.
Cervantes.
Don Quixote, because I had to read that in Spanish 501, because that's what I have my degree in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
That's intense. You had to read that in Spanish?
And I had to reenact it.
It's like not a small book, really, is it?
It's not. I had to read it in Spanish, and I had to do a reenactment of one of the scenes. So we fought a windmill. It was great.
I have this I have this really nice leather-bound copy of that book, and I've never read it.
I've never read it either. The best I've done is read some of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's short stories in Spanish, but I can't imagine reading Don Quixote in Spanish. I only got Spanish 3.
Awesome.
I got to Spanish 502.
That's a phenomenal. I wish you would teach me better Spanish.
And so do my kids.
I just have to say, what a great study you did. Thank you so much.
This is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, what a great study I did, but I wouldn't have gotten anywhere if it wasn't for the input of you all as well. This is a conversational podcast. You know?
I know, but
and I love that.
It was
I'm
awesome.
glad. But it enriches the study. I mean, I maybe do the study, but I can't put clothes on it by myself. So I'm grateful that you all came in today, especially you, Sarita. I'm glad that you were able to come in and be a part of this. This was a lot of fun.
Sorry, I only got in on the second half.
I mean, she walked in here and uncovered the feet, man.
Don't tell her husband.
No, I did not. Children, I did not do that.
No. Yeah.
I love it.
I did not take my shoes off.
Yeah, she's currently showing
or
us her
anyone
shoes.
else's. Yeah.
Or anyone else.
Yeah.
Stinky feet.
Well, folks, thank you all for hanging out with us and listening. And we'll see you next time on The Burrows of Berea, Notes from the Underground.
Bye,
peace
y'all.
out.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Rick from the Burrows of Berea. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make a podcast? None. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost a lot. And so if you guys don't mind, if anybody would like to give to help us with these episodes, it would be great. We'll put out even more content. And if you go to our Patreon page, just search for the Burrows of Berea, you'll get extra notes, extra episodes, and it's pretty much free. $1 gets you a lot. Thanks, guys.
Sure.
It was still.
It's still exploitation and desperation wrapped in and around a woman's body who's the only person who suffers when that happens.
Correct. So anyway, that kind of went on yesterday, but I just wanted her to know.
What did she decide?
She's going to keep the baby. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me cry.
But the ultimate thing was
But I feel so sad for that baby. What's it being born into? Just shit.
But I did share how much God loved her.
Yeah.
How much God saw her.
Yeah.
He sees her.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if that's all they hear before they leave, that's important to me.
Do you help them access resources too, like WIC and food stamps and Medicaid, prenatal care,
Spartanburg
vitamins?
has for someone like her. Spartanburg has access. Spartanburg Access helps Spartanburg.
Yeah,
and we give them all the information that they need to get WIC, Medicaid.
Yeah,
we have a maternity loan closet for maternity
wonderful.
clothes.
Oh, I have a bunch of stuff. Do you want them?
Yep.
I've been saving them in a bag forever because I don't know where they should go.
We have a loan closet, and then for maternity clothes, and we have a loan closet for baby clothes up to 4T.
Yeah, like the bear closet that we have here at the Methodist Church.
I didn't know about that.
It's a baby equipment and resource and apparel room. And what they do is they just collect baby stuff. And if you need it, you call them. And then when you're done with it, you give it back.
Yeah, then you get the next size up to 4T. Yep. And then once a month, we do a diaper wipe formula drive-through. So you can roll up in a Bentley. We don't check your
and that's how the bear closet is. Well, if you have a maternity closet, because I've been trying to find like a maternity closet.
We do.
I'll bring those to you.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And we're always needing... We have giant stuff, but you're so tiny. So some of these teenage girls that come in that are need of that, but they don't want to wear old lady giant clothes.
I have cute stuff. And I have some stuff that's like, this is a nursing dress, but I have some really cute like maternity stuff that's pretty and cute. And some of it's small that I didn't even wear because it was too small for me.
Right.
So,
well, I'll take that next time we meet then.